a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. HelloCast is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That is Orange Whip, WIP for work in progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities through hyper-local online platforms designed to inform, inspire, and create connections to help founders along their journey. Orange Whip is part storyteller, part how-to guide and navigator. We are the megaphone for founders telling real, raw, and honest stories. And it's why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. My name is Jennifer Sutton. Nickname is JJ. I am the founder of Orange Whip and your podcast host today. We record live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and publish on all podcast platforms on the following Sunday. On our podcast today, we welcome William Lin, or Will Lin. He's a serial builder and co-founder of Stealth Security Startup and author of his new book, The VC Field Guide. Welcome, Will. It's our 50th podcast.
Yay! Amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So welcome. I appreciate you taking the time and just chatting with me today. You was so excited to have you on. You bring such an enormous amount of experience, both in the startup scene, being a founder yourself, but also in the venture capital arena. So just start us off. Tell us how you got involved in VC and how that led you to start your own venture and then write a book.
Yeah. Let's go chronological.
Yeah.
So where did the inspiration come from to go into VC and do everything? It came from pre-college. I'm first generation. Paying for college was really something that weighed on my mind. So I was thinking like, how do I do something about it? And being entrepreneurial was the direction I went. And so when I graduated from college, I was like, I really want to be a CEO of a company, but it was just not the right time. I was barely coming out of college. And so I went down the business route. I did investment banking, and then to continue down this journey, instead of going to private equity and hedge funds, which is very, very lucrative, like crazy lucrative,
yeah,
I had to go down venture capital because it was a perfect alignment to my goal to be a founder. And so I joined a firm called Trident Capital, and I got a really lucky break. Trident was spinning out to create 2 new funds, and I got the opportunity to join them. And so I did, instead of doing something else. Like at that point, I was thinking, maybe I start a company, maybe I go to business school. I don't know yet. Maybe I join a startup, and having the opportunity to start a venture capital firm was another sort of crazy, unique experience. So I got to do that.
So as sitting on, I would say, that side of the desk, right, as a VC, what were the types of questions you were most asked by founders?
Yeah. I think the primary thing that they really wanted to know is, why do VCs do what they do? Why do we do? So when I was on the VC side, why does ForgePoint invest how we do? Like what's our sweet spot? What do we care about? How do we add value? All that stuff. And then when we got to do sort of like beer type conversations, where we're hanging out and being a little bit more frank, we got to talk about the industry as a whole. We got to talk about other VCs and said, hey, how does XYZ firm think? And what have you seen them do? And who's in their portfolio? And do you recommend them as well?
Okay.
And so a lot of it was sort of focused on like, how do VCs think? How do I accomplish my goals? Right.
It's like the brand conversations, right? Like how does your company add value or provide kind of like your unique selling proposition, versus, I'm kind of surprised. I figured, we're for founders interested of like just the overall business of money, like how do the investments work, and how do you choose which one? I mean, do those conversations happen too, or?
It does a bit, but I think they are interested, right? Like for instance, we on the venture capital side also have to raise money to invest. It's not like we have all this cash in our bank accounts and we're just pulling it out. We are investing other people's money, and we're paid fees and equity off of it. And so it's sort of like a long chain of funding. And so, but yeah, when we talk about our investors, which are called LPs, limited partners,
Okay.
people are curious about it and they're interested in it, but it's not a big topic of conversation.
Okay.
We as VCs care as well, more than the entrepreneurs do.
And now that you are founder or co-founder in Stealth Security, has your perspective changed, or did that? Just like, did that kind of open your eyes of, oh, now I understand where they were coming from, or was there anything surprising that you learned from being on the other side of the desk?
Yeah. So one of my key strengths is being a relator, so sort of empathetic kind of thing. And so on my end, the big one has been just building so much empathy from the founder's experience. It's like I can see a lot now why the founders I interacted with loved some things and didn't like some other things as well. And were super appreciative, or they didn't think something was a good use of time. And so that's become sort of the biggest pool of learnings and growth.
Okay.
But the other stuff is just like the day-to-day, like, oh, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and this is how you do it well, this is how you do that well. Like, on the VC side, we can talk about really high level things like, oh, hire fast.
Right.
Hire slow, fire fast, right? Like the other way around. And what does that even mean? Why? And
Right.
why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to fire fast?
Yeah.
For example.
And now you're in it and you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. You're just like, yes, I get it. Right. And some of it is from experiencing a bit of the pain myself. And some of it is just from just seeing how the world works, right? Like, oh, this is why this happens. Like, this is why it's a saying, right? Like, a lot of people have a common founder experience because because this is how the world is, and we're all humans and with emotions, and we think a certain way.
Right. Well, and also you look at it, most founders, I'm feel this all the time too, and I hear this a lot in our podcast and in the stories that we write in the online platform. We started the company for a reason, and it was some kind of expertise or unique perspective in that field. We weren't necessarily the best, CEOs or operations people. So we're learning how to run a company at the same time, using that special, unique perspective in whatever that category or field to grow the business. Do you feel that, or,
Yeah. So when I think about my experience becoming a venture capitalist and then growing to becoming a managing director of my fund and sort of becoming a key player, I think the only way I was able to do that was by figuring out sort of what was my unique differentiation. And not only that, but also knowing what I actually want to do, what I like to do. Well, right? Like, instead of doing what everyone else thinks I should be doing or what an example of success looks like, a lot of it was focused on what do I want to do. And so on the founder experience, it's very similar.
Yeah. Which is what is that what inspired you to start your company, of that unique perspective or that unique differentiator?
Yeah.
And it was in is it the IT space, security space, or
security space?
Okay, cybersecurity, right? Is that exactly. So what inspired you to actually start the company? What was that? I'm going to do it. This is it.
Yeah. So I think part of it was this is a long-term plan. I've always wanted to be a founder, and so that's one component of it. Another component of it is timing as well. Sort of a lot of things locked into place that said, "Oh, this is the right time to do it." And then, but the most important, I think should drive any founder is having a clear sense of themselves in terms of how they want to, like what they want to work on,
Mm-hmm.
And how are they differentiated, to your point, as well. And so on my end, I knew I wanted to build a company because I've already been doing a lot of team building across different groups. So I really enjoy that process. I've already do a lot of like find ways to help people be successful. So this was another way of doing that as well. And then I also really love learning and then taking those learnings and turning it into something scalable as well. And this was another great way of doing it. And so when I deeply saw my strengths and my desires and what gives me energy, it was all just really well aligned to being a founder as well. And and so this goes back to the whole, do things because of how you're differentiated and what's important to you and what you want to do versus what the world thinks you should be doing, right? So
Right.
the world thought I should stay in venture for forever because I built a fund. I'm at the highest level. Compensation is great. Like the whole, why give any of that up?
Right.
And But in the end, for me, it was really focused on that. What is how am I differentiated? What makes me happy, and how can I create value for the world?
So, what's been the most rewarding aspect of your founder journey?
So the one that gives me the day-to-day pleasure and joy
Mhm.
is the team building
The
side.
team. Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, these amazing people that I have so much respect for we're working together
Yeah.
and we're driving and there's like mutual respect and it's like how, that's what triggers my imposter syndrome the most. Um, the other stuff is especially like doing research and understanding the problems deeply, and then hypothesizing solutions, and then testing those solutions with customers and hearing good feedback. That's all. Like that doesn't trigger imposter syndrome. It just that triggers like, oh, this is what I have to do, and this is like next step, next step, next step,
Right.
kind of thing. And building the team, and then building the product, and doing this. Those are all just feel like steps. But the team part, that's where I'm like, holy shit! Like, do I deserve to be a leader of this team?
Wow. Is that what you said? You triggers the imposter syndrome of you know, are they looking at me like I have this false face on? Right. Um, we hear that a lot from different founders. Talk to me about how are you trying to overcome that? Do you are there other people that you seek advice and support from, or is this just more of a, do you look in the mirror in the morning and go, I'm great? Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, so
Because it's
I feel
real.
very.
It's
It
real,
is real,
right? It's,
super real. And you know, I would say that when I actively try to address it and I try to position myself as a leader, like this is why I should be a leader of this group. Uh, I don't think it's a good use of time. I don't think it's a good. It actually is something that I feel like is done defensively.
hmm,
Like for instance, when someone says like before they even caveat their decision, they say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 20 years," and then they tell the decision. It's sort of like they're trying to
posture.
posture, right? They're trying to be
Yeah.
like, don't bother questioning what I'm going to say. I have 20 years of experience. You don't. This is the answer, right? And so I think battling imposter syndrome by trying to prove yourself to external others it's not a good solution. It just triggers it just demonstrating your own insecurities
Hmm.
and doesn't make anyone as part of that conversation feel good.
Right. So play into your strengths.
I think playing to strengths is the answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, keep doing. The people are part of the team for a reason. They joined for a reason, and keep doing what you're doing. That's differentiated. That's keep doing what you're doing. That is special and unique, and let people make their decision of why you're the leader, right? Like this is a brilliant phrase, right? Like that I love, right? Like people don't choose their manager, but they choose their leader.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And how do you add value? Like you said, it's adding that value every day, right? What has been your greatest, I'll call aha moments?
There's too many. I don't know. How do I rank the aha moments? And let me talk about it chronologically or what pops into my head versus priority, just because it
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
is it is a tough one. Um, I think the one of the aha moments that I'm really enjoying right now is learning about the technical side
Mm.
of building companies and technology. Um, it's a new learning. I've been in a venture for over a decade, and I talk about how product is really important. But on the venture side, think about it in terms of product market fit.
Right,
Right? Like,
right,
okay,
right,
does the market want what you're building, and are they willing to pay the
Wha-
right price for
right.
it? So you can
What's the
build.
addressable market? What's the accessible market? Yeah, all
It's
of that.
all in the form of numbers and action,
Yeah,
and that's good. Like when you're evaluating a public company, you want to look at them in terms of numbers and action.
right.
But it doesn't account for sort of the tech debt that all engineers inherently know well.
Yep.
And it doesn't account for these decisions that was made 10 years ago that you can never change as well. And it doesn't account for how technology changes so fast as well, right? Like for instance, a interactive application that just quickly changes based off of your clicks and data
Right.
is like is a norm, it's the standard. And so if you're an application that doesn't do that, which many legacy applications don't, you have to click, you have to wait for a new page to load, and you have to wait for
Right.
that. That's a technology shift that newer companies can provide easily and intuitively, which companies that have a lot of tech debt cannot.
Mm.
And so those kinds of decisions, I didn't realize how important they were. I
Mm.
didn't realize whether that was the key that made a company sort of like a multi-decade capable company versus a flash in the pan, one big win and then.
Right. It's building that infrastructure, right? And those decisions that, I mean, yeah, that's, it's something that we, it weighs on us daily.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
um, what was, the greatest, I would say, your biggest, oh shit moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh shit to me it means this is something I thought was true, and I'm like, oh shit, it's not true.
Yeah.
Or I need to add a nuance to it.
Okay.
On the venture side, all of us believe in the world, right? It's not the idea, it's the team. It's all about execution.
Right.
All about execution. So have an amazing team, everything will be fine. And so I definitely thought about it that way. Like pre-idea, pre-anything, I was like, let's go figure out the team. And the oh shit moment was, okay, this is the idea. Eventually, after enough ideation, I was like, this is the idea I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this team doesn't like this idea. And I'm like, oh my God. Does it make sense for them to sign up for 10 years of their lives doing an idea that they're not in love with?
They haven't bought into. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was a painful moment, right? Like, in some ways, I wished I figured out the idea before I figured out the team. And in fact, that's the big oh shit, right? Which
Yeah.
is like, you
That,
do need, the idea before you build the team.
yeah. And it's, I always say that the oh shit moments usually create the ahas.
Yeah.
So that was going to be like, so if you had to do anything differently in your journey, is that one thing you would have done differently? Are there others that you would have done differently?
I think that I would have just made a tweak to it, right?
Hmm.
Which was, my ideation team was an amazing team, and they're still part of that. They're still part of the team. I think the only thing I would have just changed is not set expectations in my mind that they would be full time.
Okay.
Right. I think I needed to And so it was a tweak. I wouldn't change anything about it because it was still perfect in terms of figuring out the idea with this team.
Yeah.
And but I think the idea part is really important.
Yeah.
And sometimes the phrases that everyone says is not the idea, it's execution. That's true for certain periods of time. And it is true probably post, like when you get close to product market fit or post product market fit, yeah, then it's all execution, right? Because everyone agrees that this is a product that needs to exist in the market, then
Right.
it's pure execution. But like, for instance, the whole Facebook, MySpace, and then I can't remember the name of the company before that, right? Where we talk about, it's all about execution in the end. Well, that's because everyone sort of accepted the idea of a social network.
Right.
And so then it was the execution that really mattered.
Right. Yeah, it was like when I started my first company, which was full service marketing and ad agency in 2013, one of the best advice I got from another founder, she said, look, as you start growing and you have your unique differentiator, she was like, recognize that your team's going to evolve, especially in the first 5 years, that the people that got you to that first 5 years probably are not going to be the same people that get you to the next 5 years or the next 15 years, as you go through those milestones. And, she was like, you need to level set your head to just, yes, you want to be loyal but there's just the evolution of the team. Yeah.
Evolution of the team. Yeah. And, on my end, on the venture side, it was really hard for me to dole out advice that I hadn't experienced. I'm a learner by doer, learner by doing versus learner by reading or listening or whatever. And so it was really hard for me to dole out that kind of advice. So when I heard that kind of advice, I never repeated it to my founders because it was not, I just couldn't.
Anything that you had lived.
Yeah, I couldn't talk about something that I haven't lived. But I also was thinking, like, when I live this, because I'm going to be a founder, when I live this, I'm going to do it better than anyone else. Like that's the stuff I told myself, right? Because I have all this experience, I have all this, all this great resources to be successful. And what's been fun about that is coming to reality in some of the things as well. Like, for instance, I do want to hire the best of the best CRO right now that can stay CRO for the company for 10 years, right? Like, and do I think I could try to convince someone to do it? Maybe. But I can't afford this person, so it's not even realistic anyway, right? And so, the team is going to have to change and it's going to grow and it's going to have to mature, and things that worked before then won't work in the future.
Yeah.
Because of the natural reality of resources and the stage of the company is. And so I was just like, no, I'm going to do that better. And then it's like,
Are you going back to your VC, buddies and your colleagues and going, all right, guys, like, let me break down some myths, or like, are you going back and sharing some of that, the realities?
I'll probably write a book about it. I'll probably write.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so I want to pivot to your book. So you've written the VC Field Guide.
Yes. Yeah.
So what inspired it? Yeah. Show me the cover. Show everybody the cover. And for those that are just listening, he just held up. It's called, and the title is The VC Field Guide by William Lin. What is it available on, like, Amazon? Everywhere. So what inspired this book?
So many things. Okay. So first of all, my experience of being in a VC. I was a junior VC. I want to be promoted. I want to become a managing director one day. I want to be one of the best of the best. And how do I do it? And I, look on Google, whatever. Not a lot of good resources out there.
No.
And so, luckily, I love learning by doing, and so I got the opportunity to do and to grow that way. But the whole time I was thinking, this is not efficient. Like, there's a lot of things I don't know still, And I wish if I knew this, if I knew that, I'd probably have a much more efficient time learning and like a lot less stress, a lot less pain.
Mm.
And so the whole time I was like, I wish there was something, like I wish there was a framework like that I could just like, I love systems and structure. And so it was a
Same.
desire to solve a problem that I had. And eventually I figured it out. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. It worked exactly. If I knew this 10 years ago, I would have loved it. I would have a lot less pain and that kind of stuff. So that's a big chunk of it. The other big chunk is I'm really terrible at learning something and then just keeping it to myself as a competitive advantage. Really, I just love sharing.
Yeah.
Like I was a kindergartner that bought a bunch of candy with my, money, with my allowance and gave it to everyone else, right? So I'm just not good at holding things for myself. And so I was like, once I learned it, I needed to figure out how to share it to people who wanted it. And the book was the best format. And then I think the third one is I do give a lot of I do answer a lot of questions. Why do VCs do this? How do VCs think about this? What's happened there? That kind of thing.
Because now you're on the founder side. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
you have the secret sauce.
I have the secret sauce. But even when I was a VC, I did a lot of it too. Like I was a sharer. Like I just love sharing. And so I started thinking, well, there are a lot of people in the world I don't know or aren't in my network, and if I don't have enough, and even if I tried to help as many people as I could, I get limited by my time as well. So the book was like such a brilliant way to scale up, sort of the way I like helping the world anyway. And so it was like, okay, I'll invest. I didn't think it was gonna be 200 hours, but I'll invest 200 hours into writing this book. I thought it was gonna be a lot less.
Was it really 200 hours, or are you saying, how many hours did you think it was going to be?
I thought it was going to be
like
50.
Yeah.
It
was 200. Okay, sorry. I just was curious.
It was, and then I also didn't realize I needed to hire, I needed a lot of help in order to even make it possible in 200 hours. So I hired, I got an agent, had editors, multiple.
Giving you red lines.
Yeah, it was, I had lots of readers. It was, collectively, it was probably 500, 600 hours in terms of all the people doing their thing, maybe more actually. And so, yeah, I did not realize it was me so much time investment, but in the end, I got the book.
That's right.
The book can scale, right? Each additional person that gets the book, it requires 0 additional time for me to help them.
Right.
And so this is the beauty of, venture capital, right? Beauty of software,
right.
Finding things that scale. And if there's product market fit, if people want the book, for example, they can buy it easily, and it doesn't require asking me for help or buying it from me. So that's part's cool.
And it didn't scare you off if you're thinking about, oh, you know what? I can now write another book on.
Once I figured it out, this is the thing, I figured out the model, I figured out how to do it efficiently. And if this book ends up being very helpful to others, then yeah, I should write more books because this is who I am. I love sharing my learning. And so writing a whole book of learning, saying just purely based off of my VC turn entrepreneur, my humbling journey, the journey that humbles me like crazy.
Every day.
So just getting humble, getting punched in the face, that kind of stuff.
Slap. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always say it's like you get, there's some days where you just feel so beat down. I've been very fortunate. I've built a community, but one of the reasons I started Orange Whip was how do we create a more connected world, right, between all of us sharing those stories, because we're all so much alike.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. There's always these stats that say 90% of all startups fail. Is that something they talked about in in your experience in the VC world, that rate of failure, and why do you think that, if that's true? Is is there any commonalities around that? Because that's a scary stat.
Yeah. So it is a stat that I think, like I never repeated, but I was willing to believe in, even though I did not see the data.
Okay.
And and the reason why I was willing to believe that is because of my own data, which is
Mm.
like meeting so many founders, so many brilliant people, and then seeing so many failures as well. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, probably is something like it might not be perfect stat, but it's a good enough representation of how much failure happens. And I started my venture career in a period of failure when I started after the last tech bubble.
Oh,
And so everyone was failing at that point in time. So yeah, 90, yeah, lots of failure. Yeah, that felt normal.
yeah.
Um, the there is also, but there are facets of it though that
Okay.
are different, right? So for instance, yeah, you make the number really, really big when you include every single startup that's ever started ever, right?
Yeah.
Even the ones that never raised any money, right?
Right.
So then, yeah, of course, the number's huge.
Like just registering the LLC or the C corp somewhere, right? Well, that,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally, right? Like, in fact, if you just added, yeah, people who just registered LLC and never even started a company, yeah, that's a failure. So yeah, maybe it's 99% failure, right? I mean, I don't know what the stat is, but like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a huge, huge number depending on which stat you look at. You know, the later stage you are, the more money you raise, the less likely you're going to fail. And then also there's difference between consumer and enterprise as well. Enterprise startups also fail less. It's like risk and reward is definitely true. Enterprise startups usually fail less, but they also don't become as gigantic as a consumer startup, for instance.
Okay. Is there any ones in particular that you worked with that you're like, I'm really proud of being a part of this particular startup?
Yeah. You know, there's ones where it's like go big or go home, like high risk, high reward, and then there's ones which is like efficient growth, like I'm just like growing, building. I think for me, because I started my venture career in a recession, I'm really proud of the efficient growth companies. So one company, for example, is a company called Fisher Fox. When we invested in them, they bootstrapped themselves to about 120 people. Um, and
Wow.
and so and they've just been growing every year, 20% every year, just like that kind of thing. And then we joined the journey to help them change that trajectory to something more exponential. And yeah, they've just been continuously doing the whole efficient growth thing. And you know, that company is going to be big one day. It just, you know, tiny little steps until eventually it's a public company kind of dynamic.
Wow.
I'm really proud of Fisher Fox, for example. But I also have companies where we invested when it's two people and $20 million, and it's like creating a new category and hiring a brand new team and doing the whole thing as well. And so there's all kinds.
And watching that. What keeps you up at night?
On the VC side, legal stuff kept me up at night. Responsibility of being a board member.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't a day-to-day thing. It was like if something bad happened and we had to
So
deal
like
with it,
mitigating risk type of
we
okay.
were responsible. Like we had a responsibility as board members. Kept me up at night because it was you know, there's a lot of people that will be impacted by these kinds of decisions. Like it's very stressful replacing a CEO, for example. Yeah, that's a big one. That was the primary one, but luckily it did not happen very often. But those were the experiences where I'm like, oh, I'd just be thinking about when I'm sleeping, or I wake up at night thinking about it, that kind of stuff. Nowadays, like, so that maybe happens once every 2 years. So I haven't had anything that really keeps me up at night, other than sometimes waking up and feeling excited about something. Like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I'm a genius. I need to write this down, kind of stuff.
That's awesome. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, it's definitely the feeling of accomplishment. That's like feeling of like, oh, I figured this out, and this is something I can do, and that will be really impactful and valuable and useful. And whether it's team related, whether it's company related, whether it's like the book, like Field Guide,
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying it. Just became available yesterday on Amazon, so like this is how fresh it is, like how new
Yeah.
it is, and
Yeah.
so yeah, love this journey, which is like, for instance, I'm gonna go speak at a conference in the Middle East, and we're gonna do book signing there, right?
Okay.
And you know, uh, sure. Normally, I could just go to a conference in the Middle East, and I rarely do, but and just be a speaker or attend or whatever. But now I have like something to give beyond just my words and a talk. I have something that's more long term.
Yeah.
And people who are at the conference, and even people who aren't at the conference, could benefit from it, because that book could be given to them
Right.
by attendee from the conference, for example. So yeah,
It's
I'm
the
loving
gift, the gift of content. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. You know, the book launch and all that. Are you doing like a big celebration that it's out? And are you do anything for yourself?
I should. I have not. I have not. The nice thing is we've done some small experiments. So, for instance, we did have a conference in San Francisco last week, and then one of my portfolio companies, they did a book signing on the expo floor, and they bought this gigantic stack of books.
Oh.
I was like, oh my god, if I do not distribute all these books, I'll have to carry them, or someone will have to carry them home. It'll be so embarrassing, that kind of thing. And anyway, the punchline is we ended up distributing it in like half the time. Like,
Oh, that's
we were
fantastic.
there for like 2 hours, and ended up giving away this gigantic stack in an hour. And they came back saying it was a big hit, and it was like, peak goodness for them. So that's giving me the confidence that I should do more.
Yeah.
The celebration party, maybe I'll do something next month.
There you go. Well, it's like founders, we find that we often forget to celebrate the wins, even the smallest of wins. I mean, we tend to go, our first sale, woo, or, a big milestone, but it's those little wins that sometimes, like a team, team win. How do you guys celebrate those wins, either personally or within your company?
Yeah. Right now we are doing, because the team's small enough, we're doing founder trips. So it's a fully remote team, and once a month we get together for a week to work together. So we did a week in New York. Last month we did a week in San Francisco as part of the conference. We're doing a week in Vegas next month. At some point we're gonna do a week in all kinds of cool places. So that's how we celebrate. Like, and it's personal. We meet family members.
Yeah.
The locations are based on a conference or where they live.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
That's a great idea. Now that most companies are in that hybrid, like that's one of the challenges. How do you stay connected? Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I love that concept and that approach of the traveling.
Yes. Yeah.
Traveling event.
Yeah. I mean, we're saving on the office costs, so might as well put that towards good use.
Yeah. And like you said, get to meet the families, but then, go and experience different areas of the country. That's awesome. Are there any other like daily routines or disciplines, or, the methods that help you either achieve your goals or to stay focused on what you want to do? Do you have any kind of those self-disciplines?
Yeah. This is where it gets into the culture.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets into preferences. So I'll describe something that some people will probably say like, oh, this sounds like hell to me. I don't want to do And then some people will be like, "Oh, I love that." I was
Yeah.
like, and sounds amazing. So, I'm a worrier. Like when I care about people, and
Mhm.
so like I worry about things. If I just worry. So, for instance, customer based in London, he's has surgery, and I know, and like we were talking when he was on like loopy on painkillers, and like we just spent a lot of time
Mm.
together. He's an amazing guy, and usually we were texting back and forth, and like at all hours of the night. And anyway, texted him, and he didn't respond, and I was like, oh my god, I'm worried. And the next day, I texted him and say, I'm worried about you. Like usually you wait like a week or you wait like whatever,
Yeah.
but the next day I texted him, I'm worried about you. And that's just because the cadence, right? Like we're just so used to being like pretty instantaneous with each other.
Yeah.
And anyway, he responded, and we talked, and like all that stuff. And so culturally, that's sort of how I am as well. Like, there's reasonable expectations. Weekend, don't respond immediately. Weekday, I'd love a response within 2 hours, 1 hour. If it's more than 12 hours, I'm gonna worry. I'm gonna be like, what's going on? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I hate email, so it's all DMs, uh, and so that's how we stay in touch. One of my co-founders, that's not his standard mode. He's a batch. He's like, I do all this stuff. I need creative time. I need 4 hours to think and work and get shit
Yeah.
done. And so to make it all work, we're doing daily stand-ups because he's an engineer. Daily stand-up, that's normal for engineers.
Yeah. That's fine. So did you have to, was that a little evolutionary coach for like, dude, why are you not responding to me? Like, I need a response. And he's like, I do that on Tuesday.
Yeah, pretty much. He was
And
just
so,
like, all right, Will, I got it. We're gonna do daily stand-ups. I'm like, all right, that works. So we'll
that's
make.
right.
But like for instance, we have like designers and lawyers and all kinds of people, and I've just I definitely see that bias towards the super responsive ones, which is like I send them something legal, and I'm sort of waiting on them to take the next step, and they get back to me, usually within the hour, sometimes. And if it takes them more than 6 hours, I know it's like tons of benefit of the doubt. Like
Right.
there's a reason why, because normally it's this kind of dynamic. So that, and then the week together in some place is just, I think that's a really good substitute for the office environment.
Right. Do you have a routine of like, okay, I'm checking out. This is I gotta have some will time.
So we did do a bit of that, and we're gonna do that. Like we're putting all of our like preferences in Notion. Like this is how you communicate with me. This is because as the
Okay.
team gets bigger, it'd be easier for people to self-service, get to know us,
Yeah.
figure out how to work. And so one of them is I'm ADD basically. So during the day, usually almost even the weekend, I'm just working, ADD, responsive, blah 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 blah.
Correct.
Eventually, I'm gonna run out of energy, and I'm gonna like space out for like 6 hours or something. And so it's either super responsive or not very responsive. And it's gonna be one of the two. Yeah.
Right. You can tell when Will's checked out. Is
Yeah.
that what?
Pretty much. And I'm just honest about that. This is how it's my style.
So as you guys are developing your team, just talking about those, I call rules of engagement, right? And then we've had to do that with our company too. Of hey, might be our personal style, but this is the brand of our company. We've got to make sure that we're consistent, no matter who's touching this client. This client expects a return with them because they're a worrier. We need to carry to that client. So one last question, and then just curious of where do you want your company to be like a year from now, whether it's in the market or product or service or maybe people or culture? Like, do you have, hey, this would be great a year from now, this would be the biggest win?
Yeah. just having the benefit of seeing so many companies, and so just being able to benchmark and calibrate, like um, uh, the big addition to my data is we are in this weird, uncertain economy, and so
Mhm.
there's headwinds everywhere, right? Like even the best companies are facing headwinds. So it's a question of how do I apply what I want to achieve with also reasonableness, considering the headwinds that we are, as well as where we are as a company. We're super, super early stage. I think for me, if I were to turn it numerical, I hope we're working with at least 10 customers within a year,
Hmm.
where it's like a weekly, bi-weekly, regular cadence of we're spending time with them and they want to spend time with us. And um, I think that is a reasonable goal considering the economy and how much traction and our customer relationships right now. But I want it to be something where they have they can start patting themselves on the back internally, be like, "Oh, I did this, like I achieved this," right? Like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
want to do more," right? That kind of thing. And of course, people recognizing their success as well, because of something that we did to help them.
I like that. Last, just curious, what if you had to give 3 piece of advice, lessons learned to other founders, what would you tell them?
First one, yes, there is the experience of loneliness, right? Of being a founder, and no surprise, it's usually associated with some kind of like setback or failure or something like that.
Mhm.
Feel lonely. Um, and so, what is the response? Like, how do you stop feeling lonely?
Right.
And I think a common one is, oh, I wish I hired another person to deal with this. Like, I don't like doing this. Let's hire someone to do this
Yeah.
instead. And we certainly saw that feeling like exaggerated to no extent with when there was a lot of funding, right? We were tracking companies by how many employees they had, for example,
Okay.
versus by how much revenue they had.
Okay.
And of course, employees are always your biggest expense. Payroll is always your biggest
That's
expense.
right.
And so it meant that people were growing very inefficiently, because anytime they felt pain, the answer was let's hire more people, let's raise more money.
Right.
And so, one, we're not in a world where we can do that anyway, even if we wanted to. But two, I think recognizing that more people is not the answer to problems, and
Yeah.
efficient growth is now the norm. And so, and I think that should be the standard for infinity time anyway.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of building a business is to grow, is to create value, not to just spend money.
Right.
And so that's one big one that I think all founders need to know.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Lessons learned.
lessons learned. Yeah. I think a second one, and we just continue along this theme because there's a
Yeah.
lot, but we'll just continue this theme. The second one is on the investor part itself, assuming it's a standard venture capital startup.
Right.
You're raising money from VCs. I think that there is just so much qualification to do before knowing who the right VC is for you. And so,
Mhm.
like some of the really obvious ones, like, oh, they have a competitor in their portfolio. Yeah, don't do that. If
Okay.
they are, they're not yet taking board seats, don't, and you need board members, don't do that. But I think there's other things that are sort of not as clear, like, oh, what stage investor are they? For example, what VCs, what are their preferences in terms of investment? And then also, what kind of board member are they when they are on, and what kind of firm is behind them as well?
Hmm.
And so I think the best answer to those questions is network. There are really lots of inclusive founder networks that will help other founders as well. And so I think to get answers to these sort of like data to questions that aren't answered easily, I think joining one of the founder networks helps a lot.
Yeah.
And that part's really helpful as well. And then I think the third one, I'll relate it back to some of the conversation that we've had as well, right? Like, I think hiring one KPI that I'm experimenting with. I'll say this phrase with 50% confidence in the lesson learned. But I want it to be true. I want it to be 100% confidence. So
Okay.
when I'm at 100% confidence, I'll be saying it a lot more. But 50% confidence right now.
Okay.
I do think that there's a lot of value in hiring people that give you energy versus take away energy.
100%. I
Yeah.
could not agree more.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that contribute to that decision or to that. Like it is very much it's a very qualitative thing, like whether it gives you this person gives you energy or not. And it's very individualistic as well.
That's right.
So but I do think that is really, really important, especially as a founder, especially as a leader. This is where the 50% confidence comes from.
Right.
Because it battles a myth or it battles a belief that I used to have, which is a great leader can make anyone successful. That's a myth that I believed in, and I still am not willing to let it go yet. Which is a great leader makes anyone successful. So you should be able to work with an A player, a C player. You should be able to work with a person with this personality and that personality, this preference, that whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm gradually letting that go.
Yeah, because that's true. I mean, you know, great leaders can inspire and motivate and help teach and educate across like a skill set, more of the tangibles. But if somebody comes in and they don't have the right attitude or the belief that they can be led, and it's an uphill battle, and they're going to drain they're going to drain the energy out of the team. So yeah, and especially in startup mode when you're building a small team and trying to scale up, that energy is almost priceless.
Yeah. And the feeling of getting out of bed in the morning, energized and excited to work, right? Like the more people on the team that feel that, the better.
That's right.
And so there's someone or someone's or something that is sort of impeding that. I think that's one of the contributors to the whole fire fast, hire slow.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my God, we could keep talking, Will. And I've just looked at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, we're out of time. Thank you. This has been fantastic. I've loved the conversation. These episodes go by so fast. Will, where can they find you? Where do you want them to connect with you, find you, learn more about you and your company and your book?
LinkedIn, that's sort of where I spend. I'm an introvert, and so when I try to be extroverted, it's all usually on LinkedIn. Yeah, exactly. And so LinkedIn's the best place. Book is on Amazon. I think it would help me a lot, not just to buy the book, because that's really, really nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But the more valuable thing is review it, so that people who are outside of my network, outside of your listeners and readers network, can find the book as well. I think the goal is to, yes, there's 7 degrees of connection between all of us in the world.
Right.
I really want that 6th degree, 7th degree,
we need the Kevin Bacon effect.
Yes, exactly. To find the book, because I'm spending all my time talking to 1st degree, 2nd degree, maybe 3rd degree connections, and there's just so many other people in the world.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you come on, and hopefully we can broadcast this to some 6th and 7th degree folks. But I appreciate you hanging out and chatting with me today. And for everyone listening and watching us live, thank you for joining us. This podcast episode, again, will be published this coming Sunday and available on all podcast platforms. So subscribe to Hello Chaos. You will love these conversations. This is our 50th episode. It's fantastic. Like and comment and share this great content and help us grow a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos, again, is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange WIP. That's WIP for Work in Progress. We're a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities through hyperlocal online platforms. We are the megaphone for founders telling real, raw, and honest stories. Orange WIP is a one-stop content hub for a founder, part storyteller, part how-to guide, and local navigator with a filterable resource directory, curated events calendar, and a social chatter wall. We are currently in 3 markets in South Carolina with goals to expand to be in 30 markets in 5 years. If you'd like to be a guest like Will was today on our podcast, head over to orangewip.com. Again, that's orangewip.com. Fill out that form on the Hello Chaos page and we'll get you connected. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our weekly WIP newsletter. We are ad supported through sponsored native content. Our content is free, accessible, and inclusive. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, please email us at hello@orangewip.com. And again, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It's where AHA meets oh shit. I am your host, Jennifer Sutton, and we will see you again next week. Thanks so much, guys.